He is 99 years old and still, somehow, still dancing. Not as an echo of the past, not as a preserved fragment of archival fame, but as a living presence, unfolding in real time, in a world that has long since moved through the era he helped define. Most of the people who shaped his craft are gone. The television landscape he once ruled has transformed beyond recognition. Even the genre that made him a household name has been rewritten, deconstructed, and reimagined by generations who grew up after him. And yet he remains, but the man the world remembers and the man who lived the life behind that memory are not the same figure. One is polished by nostalgia, softened by reruns and tributes. The other is a far more complicated human story, built from silence, ambition, loss, addiction, resilience, and the strange endurance of joy that refuses to disappear even under pressure. This is the story of Dick Van Dyke, a boy from Missouri who felt invisible, a performer who spent years being rejected before being embraced, a husband and father who struggled to balance love with ambition, and an artist whose life stretched far beyond the screen that made him famous. To understand how a man becomes a symbol of joy at 99, we have to return to the beginning, where silence shaped him long before applause ever did. Missouri beginnings, a childhood of quiet distance. Dick Van Dyke was born on December 13, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri, a small town where life moved slowly and possibilities felt distant. It was not a place that encouraged reinvention. It was a place where people inherited lives rather than imagined new ones. His father, a traveling salesman, was often absent. His mother maintained the household with quiet endurance, offering stability but not emotional abundance. The home was not dysfunctional in an obvious way. It was simply emotionally sparse, lacking the warmth that teaches a child he is inherently seen. For a young boy with an active imagination, that absence of emotional visibility became formative. He learned early that attention was not guaranteed, and affection was something that had to be earned, not assumed. In that quiet environment, performance became instinct. He discovered that humor changed the atmosphere of a room. A gesture, a voice, a stumble, suddenly he existed more fully in the eyes of others. It was not about entertainment yet. It was about presence. He studied comedians like a craftsman studies tools, especially the silent, physical storytelling of early film performers. Even as a child, he sensed something others did not, that movement itself could be language. What began as coping became calling. War years and the discovery of performance as survival at 18. Dick Van Dyke entered military service during World War II. Like many young men of his generation, he was pulled from ordinary life into a global conflict that reshaped identity and purpose. He had hoped to become a pilot, but physical limitations redirected him into a different role. Instead of combat, he was placed in radio work and later participated in entertainment for troops. It was not glamorous service, and he knew it, but something unexpected happened in those environments. In the midst of uncertainty and fear, he witnessed how deeply people needed laughter, not as distraction, but as relief, brief moments where the weight of the world loosened. That realization stayed with him. He came to understand performance not as vanity, but as necessity. Joy, he learned, was not superficial. It was functional. It helped people endure. When he returned home in 1946, he carried no fame, no wealth, and no clear path forward. But he carried certainty. He would perform. The entertainment world, however, did not immediately agree. Rejection became routine. Auditions came and went. Opportunities appeared briefly and vanished. Still, he persisted, not because success was guaranteed, but because he had already experienced what it meant to bring light into a room that needed it. Years of rejection and the weight of ambition. The early career of Dick Van Dyke was defined not by success, but by persistence under rejection. He moved between cities, from radio work to small stage acts, often performing in venues that barely paid enough to survive. He formed a comedy duo, performing physical sketches in clubs and military bases. The material was sharp, the timing precise, but the audience was inconsistent. Some nights brought laughter, others brought indifference, many brought silence. He and his wife, whom he married in 1948, built a life shaped by instability. She maintained the home while he pursued uncertain work. Their relationship carried both devotion and strain, shaped by long absences and financial pressure. He loved his children, but love alone did not guarantee presence. Ambition pulled him outward, toward the idea of something larger he could not yet reach. There were moments of doubt, quiet, private moments where the dream itself felt fragile, but he did not stop. The pattern of his early adulthood became clear: movement without arrival, effort without recognition, belief without confirmation. Yet, beneath it all, something essential was forming. He was learning timing, physical storytelling, and emotional precision, skills that would later define him, even if the world had not yet recognized their value. The first break and the rise of a television presence, the turning point for Dick Van Dyke, came gradually rather than suddenly. Small television opportunities began to appear, each one slightly more stable than the last. He moved from local hosting work into broader visibility. What distinguished him was not just humor, but physical intelligence, the ability to turn movement into narrative. He did not simply deliver jokes, he embodied them. This unique quality eventually led to his break through in television comedy, where his presence felt both structured and spontaneous. He was not performing comedy as much as living inside it. Behind the scenes, he was known for professionalism and warmth. On screen, he projected ease, a kind of controlled chaos that felt effortless to audiences. His rise was not immediate fame, but accumulation. Each performance added weight to his reputation until recognition became unavoidable. But even as success arrived, he did not lose his grounded nature. He treated each opportunity as temporary, each role as something that could disappear as quickly as it arrived. That mindset, formed in years of rejection, kept him steady. What emerged was not just a performer, but a complete television presence. Someone who could carry both humor and humanity in equal measure. And the world finally began to notice. Fame, family, and the cost of constant performance with success came visibility, and with visibility came pressure. Dick Van Dyke became a household name, admired for his comedic brilliance and physical expressiveness. But fame did not simplify his life, it complicated it. While audiences saw effortless charm, the reality behind the scenes involved long hours, constant travel, and the emotional fragmentation that often accompanies public success. At home, the balance between career and family grew increasingly strained. His marriage endured love, but also distance. His children experienced both affection and absence. He was not absent because he did not care. He was absent because the demands of success consumed time faster than it could be replenished. The contradiction defined this period of his life. A man who made millions feel joy while struggling to maintain equilibrium in his own private world. Over time, this imbalance created internal conflict. The same drive that built his career also eroded parts of his personal stability. It was not dramatic collapse, but gradual strain. A slow widening gap between public laughter and private exhaustion. Still, he continued performing, because stopping was never part of his internal logic, and because, in some ways, performing was the only way he knew how to remain fully alive. Struggle, recovery, and the quiet battle with addiction even at the height of success. Dick Van Dyke faced private battles that were not visible to audiences. One of the most significant was his struggle with alcohol dependence, which developed during years of professional pressure and emotional fatigue. It was not a public collapse, but a private erosion, something that gradually interfered with stability, clarity, and relationships. At his lowest points, the contrast between public image and private reality became increasingly difficult to maintain. The man admired for joy was, in private, navigating confusion and self-repair. Recovery was neither immediate nor simple. It required acknowledgement, discipline, and sustained effort. There were setbacks. There were periods of rebuilding followed by relapse. But there was also persistence. He eventually chose sobriety and committed to rebuilding not just his health, but his sense of identity outside of performance. What defined this phase was not perfection, but return, the repeated act of coming back to clarity after losing it. In later years, he spoke about this period without mythologizing, not as triumph, but as process. And that honesty became part of his legacy as well, because behind the entertainer was a human being learning, slowly and imperfectly, how to remain whole. Reinvention, later love, and unexpected renewal in later life. Dick Van Dyke experienced a kind of renewal that few anticipate at that stage of life. After decades of public recognition and personal complexity, he entered a new relationship that reshaped his final chapters. He met a woman decades younger than him, and despite public scrutiny, the relationship developed with sincerity rather than spectacle. What others viewed through the lens of statistics, they experienced as companionship. Their marriage became a source of stability, particularly as health challenges emerged in his later years. She became an active presence in his care, advocating for treatments and supporting his well-being with consistency. For him, this relationship represented something deeper than romance alone. It was recognition not of fame, but of personhood beyond fame. He was no longer only the performer, nor only the historical figure. He was simply a man being cared for and understood in ordinary ways. This stage of life revealed something often overlooked in narratives of aging: that emotional renewal does not belong exclusively to youth. Instead, it can arrive late, unexpectedly, and with profound clarity. And in that clarity, he found companionship that reshaped how he experienced time itself. Longevity, loss, and outliving a generation as the years progressed. Dick Van Dyke outlived many of his closest collaborators and friends. The entertainment world that had once defined him began to fade into history. Co-stars, directors, and creative partners passed away one by one. Each loss carried not just grief, but the awareness of time's inevitability. He had lived long enough to see entire eras of entertainment rise and disappear. The style of comedy he helped popularize became less common, replaced by new sensibilities and formats. Yet his influence remained embedded in the foundations of television performance. Loss, however, was cumulative. It did not arrive all at once. It arrived in intervals, each one reminding him of continuity and absence simultaneously. What remained consistent was his response, not withdrawal, but remembrance. He continued speaking warmly of those he had worked with, preserving their memory through acknowledgement rather than myth. This ability to carry loss without surrendering engagement with life became one of the defining features of his later years. He did not resist aging. He incorporated it, and in doing so, he became not just a survivor of an era, but a living archive of it. 99 years, movement, memory, and continuing presence at 99, Dick Van Dyke remains physically limited in some ways, yet still remarkably expressive in others. He moves more carefully now, but movement itself has not left him. Dancing remains part of his life, not as performance, but as instinct. Even in advanced age, rhythm still finds expression in him. He lives in Malibu, near the ocean, where time feels less segmented than in earlier decades. The environment mirrors his current pace, steady, continuous, unhurried. What stands out is not longevity alone, but engagement. He remains emotionally present, responsive to humor, music, and companionship. His life has become less about achievement and more about continuity, the act of remaining present within a body that has carried him through nearly a century. The world often frames extreme longevity as extraordinary, but in his case, what is most striking is not duration, but quality of presence within that duration. He is not a relic of a past era, he is a continuation of it, and when he dances, even briefly, it is not nostalgia, it is recognition that joy still has a place in the present tense of his life. Outro, What Remains After a Lifetime of Motion. The story of Dick Van Dyke is not simply the story of fame, nor of longevity, nor even of performance. It is the story of a human being navigating the long arc between invisibility and recognition, between struggle and stability, between loss and continuation. What remains at the end of such a life is not a single defining moment, but accumulation, small acts of persistence, repeated returns to craft, and the ongoing choice to remain engaged with the world. He has outlived the era that made him famous, the collaborators who shaped him, and many of the cultural contexts that first defined his work. Yet what endures is not only memory, but influence. The way his style of physical storytelling continues to inform performance long after its original form has evolved. More quietly, what endures is something personal, the capacity for joy that was never entirely extinguished, even through difficulty. At 99, still moving, still present, he represents not perfection, but continuity, a reminder that a life is not measured only by its peaks, but by its persistence through valleys, changes, and time itself. And perhaps that is the most honest conclusion available. Not that a life must resolve into clarity, but that it can continue to unfold with meaning even as it slows. The music does not end, it simply changes tempo.